Hey guys, what's up? My name is Shivangi and welcome to the very first episode of Reading with Shivangi. For those who don't know me, I am a huge bibliophile. I have read hundreds of books in my lifetime and I thought it was high time that I give back to the book community. So I started this channel where I will talk about all my favorite books, I will give you the reviews and I will also tell you about their plot in detail. So without further ado, let's get into the very first book of my channel, which is The Hypnotist by Lars Kepler. For those who don't know, Lars Kepler is actually a pseudonym for a husband and wife writing couple, and together they have sold many books. First, let me tell you how this video is gonna go. I will first talk about the summary of the book, and I will talk about the story, the main plot line. There are many subplots in the book. I will not talk about that. I will only stick to the main plot, and after I'm done, I will also give a short review of the book. So if you don't want the main plot, if you don't want the summary, if you don't want any spoilers, you can head right on to the review. You'll find it on the search bar. And if you are interested, if you are curious, if you are intrigued, if you don't have much time to read the book, then keep watching. So first I'll talk about the main characters of the book, so later it's easier for you to keep up. We have Juna Lina, who is a detective superintendent at the police's National Operations Department, and Eric Maria Bard, who is a trained psychotherapist specialized in psychotraumatology. And we have his wife Simone and his son Benjamin. The book starts in Tumba, Sweden, with a triple homicide. The police are at the crime scene. The people inside the house, there is a mother, there are her two children. One is a 15-year-old son, Joseph. One is a 5-year-old daughter, Lisa. They are all stabbed violently. The mother is dead, the daughter is dead, and I will again reiterate the trigger warning, but for those who can stomach it, I will say the daughter was cut in two, like her whole body was cut into parts. Yeah. And the son had over 100 stab wounds all over his body, but he was barely alive, and he was the only one who was alive. And as soon as the police found out that he was alive, he was immediately rushed to the hospital. Now the police also find out that he happens to have an older sister. So now they're thinking that maybe there is someone who tried to attack the whole family and they might be after the older sister as well. And so now they have to find her because she has just practically vanished off the face of the earth. A few hours later, they also discover at a gym near the house that their father has also been murdered equally brutally, and his right arm from his elbow has been detached from his body. Now, Joseph is taken to the hospital and he is completely unconscious. And here Juna is crumbling under the pressure of finding the eldest daughter Evelyn, because he thinks the perpetrator is out there and the perpetrator might get to the daughter before they do. So now they have only one lead, which is Joseph, and he's unconscious, and the only way they can get him to talk about his sister is if he's put in a state of hypnosis. He calls up Eric Bart and he begs him to please hypnotize Joseph so he can he can be interrogated. Now Eric, because of something happened 10 years back into his life, he has stopped hypnotizing people. He used to use it as a method of therapy, but then he stopped, and he promised himself that he will never ever do it again. But Juna requests him so much that he buckles under it and he hypnotizes Joseph. On hypnotizing him, he finds out that maybe Joseph is the perpetrator, that maybe he's the one who killed his mother and his sister and his father and put the stab wounds on himself. Now the whole case spins on its head, and now Juna Lina has to find the sister before Joseph gets discharged from the hospital and tries to kill her. Now the search for the older sister is on the way, and we get a glimpse into Eric's personal life. So his son Benjamin has some sort of disease, and which makes him a hemophiliac. So if he gets even a small cut, it will take a long time for his blood to clot. To deal with this, he has to get an injection every Tuesday, and if he misses this dose, then it could be fatal. The day after the hypnosis takes place, the media somehow gets wind of it and Eric's name is all over the news, painting him as a perpetrator who made the victim confess to a crime he didn't even commit. In the midst of all this, the police find out about an aunt's house where Evelyn could potentially be hiding. So all the police personnel, they go over to that house and they find it empty. But it looks like somebody has been living there. So they wait a while and they see a very young woman walking through the woods carrying a shotgun. They quickly identify Evelyn and they interrogate her. During the interrogation, Evelyn becomes very distraught, starts crying a lot and then passes out. After this, for the next few days, the police repeatedly interrogate Joseph and Evelyn. At first, they don't get anything concrete from Joseph, but Evelyn cracks and she tells them everything. Apparently, there was always something wrong with Joseph. So when he was a kid, he used to fight too hard and too violently. When he was 8, he asked Evelyn if she would be his girlfriend, and then they demanded that they kiss. And Evelyn was obviously horrified at this. Then he started beating up a dog buster if she did not do what he wanted her to do. And he would want weird things, like he would want to see her naked or he would want to get into the bathtub with her. And obviously Evelyn was very uncomfortable and kept trying to hold him off, and then he killed Buster. Then he started abusing Lisa, who was just 2 years old, and he wanted Evelyn to pleasure him with her mouth. And if he didn't, he kept abusing Lisa. And these harassments continued till Evelyn finally got into college and moved out of home. But after a few months, Joseph managed to find her, and then he went to visit her, and he threatened her that if she did not give in to his demands, he will kill their entire family. So apparently, Joseph was a C-section boy. There was some sort of complication during his birth, and he had to be, surgically removed from his mother's body. After that, his mother never really recovered. She even had to go to an asylum for a year, but she was always so detached from Joseph. She never gave him enough love, and Evelyn was the one who fell in charge of raising Joseph. And she did as much as she could. But many years after Joseph, when his mother, she had Lisa, she finally seemed to recover, and she loved Lisa and she adored her a lot, and this made Joseph very jealous of Lisa. By this time, Joseph has been in the hospital for 4 nights, and at this point he could manage to, walk a little bit, despite the fact that he was terribly in pain. He got up and escaped from the hospital, killing a nurse and injuring another man in his wake. He got into the man's car and drove off right before Juna's eyes. The very same night, Eric's son Benjamin is also kidnapped from his home. Someone broke in, drugged Simone and drugged Benjamin, and then bodily carried Benjamin out as Simone helplessly watched. Now, investigations are underway about Benjamin's disappearance, and everyone is obviously thinking that Joseph did it, right? However, on questioning the neighbors, they find out that it was a woman who did it. Now there are 2 teams working on this. One is Eric and Juna, and the other one is Simone and her father, who is a retired police officer. Now, the investigation turns out to be very long and takes up a significant portion of the book, with both the teams grasping at straws. At this point, we also take a deep dive into what happened in Eric's life 10 years back. So, Eric was researching how hypnosis can help people deal with their trauma, and he used to conduct group hypnosis sessions. We get to know about many of his patients, and we get in-depth detail about their lives as well. This part takes up a lot of the book, but we come up with one name, which is Lydia. Now, Lydia was a patient of Eric, and Eric actually had a lot of trouble with her because it took a lot of effort on Eric's part to get Lydia to talk about her trauma, and when she did, Eric was horrified. So Lydia confessed that she actually kept her son in the basement of her house in a cage, and she would repeatedly beat him and be very abusive and give him meals once a day and even less. And obviously Eric was shocked to hear this, and he had to notify the police. But when the police reached her house, they didn't find anything. And Lydia was so upset, she slit her throat in front of the police and blamed Eric for interfering in her life. Thankfully, she survived that ordeal, and she had been in an asylum for this entire time. 6 days after Joseph escaped and Benjamin was kidnapped, Eric's house was broken into. Simone was in the house with a friend. She was in the shower, her friend was in the living room. and Joseph and Evelyn broke in. They saw her friend and they killed him, and Simone barely escaped because Evelyn helped her. So Evelyn had to kill Joseph so she could allow Simone to escape. Eric suspected Lydia and went to her house, and the police dog sniffed around a little and they came up with some bones that were buried in her backyard. But the bones belonged to a 5-year-old. Then they find out that Lydia had actually, many years back, 10 years back, she had actually kidnapped a child who was 3 years old, held that child captive in her basement for 2 years, abused him a lot, and when she found out that the police got wind of it and they were going to come search her house, she killed that boy and she buried him in her backyard. So Eric was right actually. So after a lot more running around and fragments of information, Eric, Juna and Simone arrived at Wilhelmina, which is pretty far from Tumba, so they had to take a flight. They find out about a house and they go to check it out. And at this point, it's winter, it's December, so there's snow everywhere. They get directions to a house which is beside a lake, and there are many abandoned vehicles around the house. They finally find the house where Lydia and 2 of her people have captured Benjamin. And we find out that Lydia is actually trying to run a very strict and very religious household, and she sees Benjamin as her own son. But she keeps punishing him, and by cutting off his nose. Like, she did not manage to cut off his nose, but she wanted to punish him by making someone cut off his nose. And the thing is, if that had happened, he would have bled to death. Eric, Juna and Simone approach the house and get into a fight with one of the men. Benjamin, on the other hand, manages to escape and runs into a bus, and that bus has a cover on it, and so he's in the bus and he's hiding, but Lydia finds out and Lydia runs after him, and she also enters the bus and she starts the bus and drives it right into the lake. The lake is freezing, the bus is sinking and filling up with water, and Benjamin and Lydia are both in it. Benjamin is trying to swim out of it, Lydia won't let her. Now Eric also jumps into the water and he somehow manages to save his son, and they both come out safe and sound, and Lydia freezes and also drowns to death. We get a happy ending of sorts where the family is reunited after all of this, and they are sitting in a fast food joint and just resting and eating. So that was the story, that was the main plot. Now I'll talk about the pros and cons of this book. There is one pro, which is the plot twists are really good and the main plot is very gripping. And there are a few cons. The main point is that there are so many subplots in this book that it kind of dilutes the thrilling effect of the book, of the main plot. And certain subplots take up so much of the book, at times it feels unnecessary. But overall it was a good read. I enjoyed it. I finished it in 3 sittings. And if you want more detail and if you want to know about the subplots, if you want to delve deeper into the book, I would suggest you go for it. You will not be disappointed, especially if you like thrillers. Thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing, then please hit the like button and the subscribe button. If you want more such videos, then please also hit the bell icon. Bye. See you next time.